Don't look now, I'm fading away into the gray of my mornings or the blues of every night. Is it that my nails keep breaking, or maybe the corn on my second little piggy? Things keep popping out on my face or of my life. It seems no matter how I try, I become more difficult to hold. I am not an easy woman to want. They have asked the psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and politicians what this decade will be known for. There is no doubt it is loneliness. If loneliness were a grape, the wine would be vintage. If it were wood, the furniture would be mahogany. But since it is life, it is cotton candy on a rainy day, the sweet, soft essence of possibility never quite maturing. I have prided myself on being in the great tradition, albeit circus, that the show must go on. Though in my community the vernacular is, one monkey don't stop the show. We all line up at some midway point to thread our way through the boredom and futility, looking for the blue ribbon or gold medal. Mostly these are seen as food labels. We are consumed by people who sing the same old song, Stay, As Sweet As You Are, In My Corner, or perhaps just a little bit longer. But whatever you do, don't change. Baby, baby, don't change. Something needs to change. Everything, some say, will change. I need a change of pace, face, attitude, and life, though I long for my loneliness. I know I need something, or someone, or... I strangle my words as easily as I do my tears. I stifle my screams as frequently as I flash my smile. It means nothing. I am cotton candy on a rainy day, the unrealized dream of an idea unborn. I share with the painters the desire to put a three-dimensional picture on a one-dimensional surface. She didn't like to think in abstracts. Sadness, happiness, giving, taking, all abstracts. She much preferred waxing the furniture, cleaning the shelves, putting the plates away, something concrete to put her hands on, a job well done in a specific time span. Her eyes were two bright, shiny six guns already cocked, prepared to go off at a moment's indiscretion. Had she been a Vietnam soldier or a mercenary for Ian Smith, all the children and dogs and goodly portions of grand old trees would have been demolished. She had lived both long and completely enough not to be chained to truth. She was not pretty. She had no objections to the lies. Lies were better than the silence that abounded. Nice, comfortable lies like, I need you, or, gosh, you look pretty this morning. The lies that make the lie of life real, or lies that make real life livable. She lived on the edge of an emotional abyss, or perhaps she lived in the well of a void. There were always things she wanted, like arms to hold her, eyes that understood, a friend to relax with, someone to touch, always someone to touch. Her life was a puzzle broken into 100,000 little pieces. She didn't mind being emotionally disheveled. She was forever fascinated by putting the pieces together, though most times the center was empty. She never slept well. There wasn't a time, actually, when sleep refreshed her. Perhaps it could have, but there were always dreams or nightmares, and mostly her own acknowledgement that she was meant to be tired. She lived because she didn't know any better. She stayed alive among the tired and lonely, not waiting, always wanting, needing a good night's rest. All problems, being as personal as they are, have to be largely of our own making. I know I'm unhappy most of the time. Nothing an overdose of sex won't cure, of course. But since I'm responsible, I barely have an average intake. On the other hand, I'm acutely aware there are those suffering from the opposite affliction. Some people die of obesity, while others starve to death. Some commit suicide because they are bored, others because of pressure. The new norm is as elusive as the old. Granting, problems coming from within are no less painful than those out of our hands. I never really do worry about atomic destruction of the universe, though I can be quite vexed that Namath and Ali don't retire. My father has to, and though he's never made $1 million or even hundreds of thousands, he too enjoys his work and is good at it, but more goes when he doesn't feel like it. People fear boredom, not because they are bored, rather more from fear of boring, though minds are either sharp or dull, and bodies available or not, and there's something else that's never quite wrong, though never quite right either. I've always thought the beautiful are as pitiful as the ugly, but the average is no guarantee of happiness. I've always wondered a bit, not knowing if this is a function of creeping menopause or incipient loneliness. I no longer correct my habits. Nothing makes sense if we are just a collection of genes on a Freudian altar to the species. I don't like those theories telling me why I feel as I do. Behaviorisms never made sense outside feeling. I could say I am black, female and bright, in a white male mediocre world. But that hardly explains why I sit on the beaches of St. Croix, feeling so abandoned. In front of the bank building after 6 o'clock, the gathering of the bag people begins. In cold weather, they huddle around newspapers. When it is freezing, they get cardboard boxes. Someone said they are all rich eccentrics. Someone is, of course, crazy. The man and his buddy move to the truck port in the adjoining building. Most early evenings, he visits his neighbors, awaiting the return of his friend from points unknown to me. They seem to be a spontaneous combustion, these night people. They evaporate during the light of day, only to emerge at evening glow, as if they had never been away. I am told there are people who live underground in the layer between the subways and the pipes that run them. They have harnessed the steam to heat their corner and cook their food, though there is no electricity, making them effectively moles. The 20th century has seen 2 big wars and 2 small ones, the automobile and the SST, telephones and satellites in the sky, man on the moon and spacecraft on Jupiter. How odd to also see the people of New York City living in doorways of public buildings, as if this were an emerging nation, though of course it is. Look at the woman who sits on 57th Street and 8th Avenue selling pencils. I don't know where she spends the night. She sits summer and winter, snow or rain, humming some white religious song. She must weigh over 250 pounds. The flesh on her leg has been stretched, like a petite pair of stockings onto a medium frame, beyond its ability to fit. There are tears and holes of various purples in her legs. Things and stuff ooze from them, drying and running again. There is never, though, a smell. She does not ask you to buy a pencil, nor will her eyes condemn your health. It's easy, really, to walk by her. Unlike the man in front of Tiffany's, she holds her pencils near her knee, you take or not, depending upon your writing needs. He, on the other hand, is blind and walking his German Shepherd dog. His sign says there, but for the grace of God goes you. And there is a long explanation of his condition. It's rather easy for the Tiffany shopper to see his condition. He is black. Uptown on 125th Street is an old, blind black woman. She is out only in good weather and clothes. Her house is probably spotless, as Southern ladies are wont to keep house, and her wig is always on straight. "You got something for me?" she called. "What do you want?" I asked. "What's your name? I know your family." "No, you don't," I said, laughing. "You don't know anything about me." "You that Italian poet, ain't you? I know your voice. I seen you on television." I peered closely into her eyes. "You didn't see me, or you know I'm black. Let me feel your hair. If you black, hold down your head." I did, and she did. "Got something for me?" she laughed. "You felt my hair. That's good luck." "Good luck is money, child," she said. "Good luck is money." It's not the crutches we decry. It's the need to move forward, though we haven't the strength. Women aren't allowed to need, so they develop rituals, since we all know working hands idle the devil. Women aren't supposed to be strong, so they develop social smiles and secret drinking problems and female lovers whom they never touch, except in dreams. Men are supposed to be strong, so they have heart attacks and develop other women who don't know their weaknesses and hide their fears behind male lovers whom they religiously touch every Saturday morning on the basketball court. It's considered such a sign of health, don't you know, that they take such good care of their bodies. I'm trying to say something about the human condition. Maybe I should try again. If you broke an arm or leg, a crutch would be a sign of courage. People would sign your cast, and you could bravely explain, "No, it doesn't hurt, it just itches." But if you develop an itch, there are no salves to cover the area in need of attention. And for whatever guilt may mean, we would feel guilty for trying to assuage the discomfort, and even worse, for needing the aid. I really want to say something about all of us. Am I shouting? I want you to hear me. Emotional falls are always the worst, and there are no crutches to swing back on. I am in a box on a tight string, subject to pop without notice. Everyone says how strong I am. Only black women and white men, they say, are truly free. It is not difficult to see how stupid they are. I would not reject my strength, though its source is not choice, but responsibility. I would not reject my light, though my wrinkles are also illuminated. Something within demands action, or words if action is not possible. I am tired of being boxed. Muhammad Ali must surely be pleased that Leon Spinks relieved him. Most of the time, I can't breathe. I smoke too much to cover my fears. Sometimes I pick my nose to avoid the breath I need. I do also do the same injustice to my poems. I write because I have to. I have considered my reluctance to be a fear of death. There are all sorts of reasons I don't want to die. Responsibility to family, obligations to friends, dreams of future greatness. I close my eyes and chant on airplanes to calm my fleeting heart. Since we are riding on air, my will is as necessary as the pilot's ability to keep us afloat. I have felt that way about other endeavors. However do we justify our lives? The President of the United States says faith, not deeds, will determine our salvation. That's probably why Larry Flint, a stand-in for Carter, is without his insides now. I have faith, of course, in the deeds I do and see done. One really can't hate the act but love the actor. Only Jewish theater and American politics would even contemplate such a contradiction. However shall we survive the 70s? I seize on little things. You can tell a lot about people by the way they comb their hair or the way they don't look you in the eye. Am I discussing Nixon again? He went to Humphrey's funeral and opened his house, $250 per head, for the public to see. I can't decide if Anita Bryant should marry Carter or Nixon. They are both so bad, they deserve her. There must be something fun worth sharing. There is a split between the Jewish and black community. The former didn't mind until the latter put a name to it. I live in a city that is turned into a garbage can. There is no disagreement about that. There is some question concerning the dog dung in the streets as opposed to the dog dung in the administration. Ah, but you will say how awful of the poet. Such insinuations she does make. Nobody is perfect. I do, after all, have this, well, reluctance. How do poets write so many poems? My poems get decimated in the laundry, the dishes, my sister is having another crisis, the bed has to be made, there's a blizzard on the way, go to the grocery store. Did you go to the cleaners? Then a fuse blows. A fuse always has to blow. The women soon find themselves talking either to the babies or about them, no matter how careful we are. We end up giving tips on the latest new improved cleaner and the lotion that will take the smell away. If you write a political poem, you're anti-Semitic. If you write a domestic poem, you're foolish. If you write a happy poem, you're unserious. If you write a love poem, you're maudlin. Of course, the only real poem to write is the go-to-hell writing establishment poem, but the readers never know who you're talking about, which brings us back to point one. I think sorry for the women. They have no place to go. It's the same old stories black hear all the time. If it's serious, a white man would do it. When it's serious, he will. Everything from writing a poem to sweeping the streets to cooking the food as long as his family doesn't eat it. It's a little off-center, this life we're leading. Maybe I shouldn't feel sorry for myself, but the more I understand women, the more I do. Somewhere there was a piano playing, but not in the bar where she was sitting. Somewhere across the candle lights, like a ship threading its way through the morning fog, two people were surely moving toward completion. She knew she had feelings that were unfulfilled. There must certainly be a revolution somewhere, but she couldn't see it. The idea of fulfillment baffled her. Most assuredly, she remembered. The sheets were clean, and he was tender. It was an accident, that rush of red wine starting with her toes that came over her, ending with a sigh. She always hated people who had to talk and instruct or give indiscreet encouragement. She had laughed and laughed. What a marvelous thing you have discovered, she told him. She looked to see if anyone was happy in the bar in which she was sitting. How many eons had it been? How many men? Enough to make her secure in her desirability. Too many to allow herself to say she loved them all. Remembering the names was the hardest, though she always retained the ability to rate them. What indeed made sex so fascinating to everyone? At best, it's a tooth in pain that rubbing the gums will ease. At worst, a desire denied, like the eyes closing to the evening sunset. She looked and crossed her support hose leg in the bar with the music just out of reach. One always remembers passion, whether fantasy or fact. That rush of pure glandular energy. What really did she feel? She straightened her gray flannel panel skirt, pulling her gray silk blouse tight against her breast, rubbing her left arm with a square gold band against the chill that settled on the right. She looked around at the lonely faces in the bar without the music. What made people interested in other people in whom they have no interest? But yes, she recalled, as the drink was served, there is an energy crisis. That's why I'm having this drink amid a raging storm outside. There is one inside, too, and spring will not lessen its ferocity. Unconsciously, as black women are wont to do, she hummed a tune and patted her foot to the gospel beat. The tips of the black pumps were grayish-white, the ice and salt having taken their measure. She examined her nails, noting the cuticles need trimming. A dim reflection from the mirror on the wall showed her the face and form of a coward. Life, she justified, is not heroic, but survival. Tonight, through the storm, she would sit in a bar with the music only in her head. In the morning, for sure, she would go home. We tend to fear old age as some sort of disorder that can be cured with a proper brand of aspirin, or perhaps a bit of Bengay for the shoulders. It does, of course, pay to advertise. One hates the idea of the first gray hair, a shortness of breath, devastating blows to the ego, indications that we are doing what comes naturally. It's almost laughable that we detest aging. When we first become aware, we want it. Little girls of 4 or 5 push, with eyes shining brightly at Graham or Mommy, the lie that they are 7 or 8. Little girls at 10 worry that a friend has gotten her monthly and she has not. Little girls of 12 can be socially crushed by lack of knobs on their chest. Little boys of 14 want to think they want a woman. The little penis that simply won't erect is shattering to their idea of manhood. If perhaps they get a little peach fuzz on their faces, they may survive adolescence, proving there may indeed be life after high school. The children begin to play older, without knowing the price is weariness. Age teaches us that our virtues are neither virtuous nor our vices foul. Age doesn't matter, really. What frightens is mortality. It dawns upon us that we can die. At some point it occurs, we surely shall. It is not death we fear, but the loss of youth. Not the youth of our teens, where most of the thinking took place somewhere between the navel and the knee, but the youth of our 30s, where career decisions were going well, and we were respected for our abilities, or the youth of our 40s, where our decisions proved, if not right, then not wrong either, and the house, after all, is half paid. It may simply be that work is so indelibly tied to age that the loss of work brings the depression of impending death. There are so many, too many, who have never worked, and therefore for whom death is a constant companion. As lack of marriage lowers divorce rate, lack of life prevents death. The unwillingness to try is worse than any failure. In youth, our ignorance gives us courage. With age, our courage gives us hope. With hope, we learn that man is more than the sum of what he does. We are also what we wish we did, and age teaches us that even that doesn't matter. I wrote a poem for you because you are my little boy. I wrote a poem for you because you are my darling daughter. And in this poem I sang a song that says, as time goes on, I am you and you are me, and that's how life goes on. I will be bitter when I grow old. I have seen the weakness of our race, though I, as with many others, am reluctant to give it name. Each day I face the world through fantasies of past glories. Who I deceive, I am not at all sure. Not myself, not the whites above. Even the children know the sterility of their fathers. There are both reasons and excuses. None are lacking in understanding the causes. A cold front meeting a warm mass of air causes rain also, but that reason offers less comfort than a simple raincoat. Mankind alone among the mammals communicates with his species justification for his behavior. None of us lack compassion, or understanding, or even sympathy. Emotion is not a response to inaction. And undoubtedly there are those who are so unfeeling they cannot represent emotional or mental health. We have seen the Germans and the Israeli reaction and the Palestinian response in our own time. We know the truth of the Africans and Indians. We know we have only begun the horror that is waiting south of our borders and south of our latitude. Blood perhaps should not always be the answer, but perhaps it always is. My people have suffered so much for so long, we are pitiful in our misery. We boost our spirits by changing our minds rather than our condition. Blacks are still rather cheap to purchase. Unemployment insurance, a grant for a program to fail, enough seed money to ensure bankruptcy. My people, like magnificent racehorses, have blinders. There is always talk of the mighty past, but no plans for a decent future. If no man is an island, Black Americans stand to prove a people can be peninsular. We are extended phallic-like in an ocean of whiteness, though that is not our problem. Our extension, like arms on the body or legs on a trunk, is essential to balance. One neither walks nor stands without extensions. One is not black without white, nor male without female. What is true of the mass is no less true of the individual. Someone said the only emotion black men show is rage or anger, which is only partly true. The only rage and anger they show are to those who would want to love them, and bear their children and walk with them into the future, why do we, who have offered expectation, have to absorb pain? I will grow bitter in old age because life is not a problem but a process, and there are no formulas to our solution. The dinosaurs are extinct, ripened fruit falls from the bough, and I grow tired of hoping. It is only natural that bitterness rests within my spirit. The air is polluted, streams are poisoned, and I have seen the hollow look of hatred in the dull, worn faces of their fathers. She realized she wasn't one of life's winners when she wasn't sure. Life to her was some dark, dirty secret that, like some unwanted child too late for an abortion, was to be born alone. She had so many private habits. She would masturbate sometimes. She always picked her nose when upset. She liked to sit with silence in the dark. Sadness is not an unusual state for the black woman or writers. She took to sneaking drinks, a habit which displeased her both for its effects and taste. Yet eventually sleep would wrestle her in triumph onto the bed. She was nervous when he was there and anxious when he wasn't. Life to her was a crude, cruel joke played on the livers. She boxed her life like a special private seed, planting it in her emotional garden to see what weeds would rise to strangle her. There is always something of the child in us that wants a strong hand to hold through the hungry season of growing up. When she was a child, summer lasted forever, and Christmas never seemed to come. Now her bills from Easter usually are paid by the 4th of July, in time to buy the ribs and corn and extra bag of potatoes for salad. The pit is cleaned, and Labor Day is near, time to tarpaulin the above-ground pool. Thanksgiving turkey is no sooner soup than the children's shoes wear thin, saying Christmas is near again, bringing the February letters asking, "Did you forget us last month?" Her life looks occasionally as if it's owed to some machine, and the only winning point she musters is to tear, mutilate, and twist the cards, demanding information, payment, and a review of her creditworthiness. She sits sometimes in her cucipoled desk and recalls that her mother did the same things. What we have been given, we are now expected to return, and she smiles. I haven't written a poem in so long, I may have forgotten how. Unless writing a poem is like riding a bike or swimming upstream or loving you. It may be a habit that once acquired is never lost. But you say I'm foolish. Of course you love me. But being loved, of course, is not the same as being loved because, or being loved despite, or being loved. If you love me, why do I feel so lonely? And why do I always wake up alone? And why am I practicing not having you to love? I never loved you that way. If being loved by you is accepting always getting the worst, taking the least, hearing the excuse, and never being called when you say you will, then it's a habit, like smoking cigarettes or brushing my teeth when I awake. Something I do without thinking, but something without which I could just as well do. Most habits occur because of laziness. We overdrink because our friends do. We overeat because our parents think we need more flesh on the bones. And perhaps my worst habit is overloving. And like those who live to excess, I will be broken in two by my unwillingness to control my feelings. But I sit writing a poem about my habits, which, while it's not a great poem, is mine. And some habits, like smiling at children or giving a seat to an old person, should stay, if for no other reason than their civilizing influence, which is the ultimate habit I need to acquire. Finding myself still fascinated by the falls and rapids, I nonetheless prefer the streams contained within the bountiful brown shoreline. I prefer the inland waters to the salty seas, knowing that journeys end as they begin, the sailor and his sail, the lover and her beloved, the light of day and night's darkness. I walk the New York streets, the heat rising in waves to singe my knees. My head is always down, for I no longer look for you. Usually I am cold, no matter what the temperature. I hunch my hands in the pockets of my pants, hoping you will be home when I get there. I know I'm on dangerous ground. I misread your smile all year, assured that you, and therefore everything, were all right. I wade from the quiet of your presence into the turbulence of your emotions. I have now understood a calm day does not preclude a stormy evening. Con Edison, after all, went out. Why shouldn't you? And though it took longer than anyone thought, the lights did come back on. Why shouldn't yours? Electricity is a product of the sea as much as the air, coming from turbulence as much as generators. If you were a pure bolt of fire cutting across the skies, I'd touch you, risking my life. Not because I'm brave or strong, but because I'm fascinated by what the outcome will be. He always had pretty legs, even now, though he has gotten fat. His legs have kept their shape. He swam. Some men get those legs from tennis, but he swam in a sink-or-swim mud hole somewhere in Alabama. When he was a young man more than half a century ago, talent was described by how well a thing was done, not by whom. That is, considering that black men weren't considered, one achieved on merit. The fact that he was short was an idea late reaching his consciousness. He hustled the ball on the high school court, well enough to win a college scholarship. Luckily for me, since that's when he met my mother. I have often tried to think lately when I first met him. I don't remember. He was a stranger, as black or perhaps responsible fathers are wont to be. He worked 3 jobs, a feat without precedence, though not unknown in the hills of West Virginia or the red clay of Georgia. What happens to a dream when it must tunnel under? Langston says it might explode. It might also just die, shriveling to the here and now, confusing the dreamer till he no longer knows whether he is awake or asleep. Before we ourselves meet the man, lie to the bill collectors, don't know where the mortgage payment is coming from, it's difficult to understand a weakness. Before our mettle is tested, we easily consider ourselves strong. Before we see our children want, not elaborate things, but a Christmas bike or Easter shoes, it's easy to say what should have been done. Before we see our own possibility shrink back into the unclonable self from which dreams spring, it's easy to condemn. If the first sign of spring is the swallows, then the first sign of maturity is the pride we gulp when we realize there are few choices in life that are clear. Seldom is good pitted against evil, or even better against best. Mostly it's bad against worse. And while some may intone life is not fair, choice, by definition, implies equally attractive alternatives or mutually exclusive experiences. Boxers protect themselves from blows with heavily greased shoulders. Football players wear helmets. Joggers have specially made shoes to absorb the shocks. The problem with the life game for the unprotected players is not what you don't have, but what you can't give, though ultimately there is the understanding that even nothing is something, as long as you are there to give the nothing personally. Black men grow inverse to the common experience. He grew young when his children left home. He has both time and money to buy the toys he never had, lawnmowers, saws, garden equipment, whatever is new and exciting. He smiles more, too, and his legs are still quite nice for a grandfather. If I can't do what I want to do, then my job is to not do what I don't want to do. It's not the same thing, but it's the best I can do. If I can't have what I want, then my job is to want what I've got and be satisfied that at least there is something more to want. Since I can't go where I need to go, then I must go where the signs point, though always understanding parallel movement isn't lateral. When I can't express what I really feel, I practice feeling what I can't express, and none of it is equal, I know. But that's why mankind, alone among the mammals, learns to cry. The eye, we are told, is a camera, but the film is the heart, not the brain, and our hands joining those that reach develop the product. It's easy sitting in the sun to forget that cold exists, let alone envelops the lives of people. It's easy sitting in the sun to forget the ice and ravages of winter, yet there are those who would have no other season. It's always easy when thinking we have the best to assume others covet it, yet surf or sea both have its lovers and its meaning for love. Watching the red sun bleed into the ocean, one thinks of the beauty that fire brings. If the eye is a camera and the film is the heart, then the photo assistant is God and life is the subject matter. I should write a poem, but there's almost nothing that hasn't been said and said and said. Beautifully, ugly, blandly, excitingly. Stay in school, make love not war, death to all tyrants. Where have all the flowers gone? And don't they understand at Kent State? The troopers will shoot again. I could write a poem because I love walking in the rain and the solace of my naked body in a tub of warm water. Cleanliness may not be next to godliness, but it sure feels good. I wrote a poem for my father, but it was so constant I burned it up. He hates change, and I'm baffled by sameness. I composed a ditty about Encore, American and Worldwide News, but the editorial board said no one would understand it, as if people have to be tricked into sensitivity, though of course they do. I love to drive my car hours on end along backcountry roads. I love to stop for cider and apples and acorn squash, 3 for $1. I love my CB when the truckers talk and the hum of the diesel in my ear. I love the aloneness of the road when I ascend descending curves. The power within my toe delights me, and I fling my spirit down the highway. I love the way I feel when I pass the moon and I holler to the stars, I'm coming through, beep, beep. I dreamed of you last night, standing near the drugstore on the Saint-Germain-du-Pré. You popped out of the pastry shop, wiping some exotic cream from your lips, showing off your new cigarette holder. Got one yet? And your smile lit up the city of lights. Southern men cannot be generalized about. I know you all as liars and lynchers. I have accepted the myth that though you may wear a suit, beneath it the blood runs hot. And your hair, so similar to those whom Darwin said were all our ancestors, mats against your heaving chest. It's unpatriotic not to smoke tobacco, we both agreed, at least in North Carolina, and poor Ed, who will someday be a great man, just sat there confused. Without laughter, what is the purpose? My ancestors once worked for yours involuntarily, and I laugh because it is only what happened, not nearly the truth. I've seen Paris and you've seen me, and last night in my dream, we both smiled. She wanted to be a blade of grass amid the fields, but he wouldn't agree to be the dandelion. She wanted to be a robin singing through the leaves, but he refused to be her tree. She spun herself into a web, and looking for a place to rest turned to him, but he stood straight, declining to be her corner. She tried to be a book, but he wouldn't read. She turned herself into a bulb, but he wouldn't let her grow. She decided to become a woman, and though he still refused to be a man, she decided it was all right. A flying saucer landed in my living room. I, too, am an astronaut, having applied for my own space. I welcome the visitor. I need something intelligent to talk to. Not for long, but maybe just through dinner. Not being afraid of what I don't know, I unanxiously awaited the emergence. Should I call him a spaceman, or might not it be a woman? Probably not. Her menses on Jupiter, no less than Earth, causes excuses for exclusion. Should I shake hands and offer a glass of white wine? I always wanted to know space people, but how do we proceed? I think I should tell you, she reported as she stepped from her craft. You possibly are not seeing me. Depending upon the solar year, you may only be seeing my aura. Don't worry, I assured her, happy it was a woman. Depending upon my aura, you most likely are only seeing my solar years. We sat down to talk. Though I do wonder why you intrigue me, I recognize that an exceptional moth is always drawn to an exceptional flame. You're not at all what you appear to be, though not so very different. I've not learned the acceptable way of saying you fascinate me. I've not even learned how to say I like you without frightening people away. Sometimes I see things that aren't really there, like warmth and kindness, when people are mean. But sometimes I see things like fear and want to soothe it, or fatigue and want to share it, or love and want to receive it. Is that weird? You think everyone is weird. Though you're not really hypocritical, you just practice not being what you really want to be, and fail to understand how others would dare to be otherwise. That's weird to me. Flames don't flicker forever, and moths are born to be burned. It's an unusual way to start a friendship, but nothing lasts forever. I know I haven't grown, but I don't fit beneath the rose bush by my grandmother's porch. I couldn't have grown so much, though I don't see why the back of the couch doesn't hide me from my sister. The lightning that would flash on summer days brought shouts of, "You children, be still, the lightning's going to get you." We laughed, my cousins and sister and I, at the foolish old people and their backward superstitions. Though lightning struck me in New York City, and I ran, to or from what, I'm not sure. But I was hit, and now I don't fit beneath the rose bushes anymore. Anyway, they're gone. There are sounds which shatter the staleness of lives, transporting the shadows into the dreams. Raindrops falling on leaves shatter the dust of the city, as soap washed off bodies shatters the complacent dirt. She waited for him to take away that quiet. She waited for his call, with the patience of a slave woman quilting or a Jewish mother simmering chicken broth. There would be no other sound than his voice to shatter the quiet of her heart. She waited for him to come. We make up our faces for lots of reasons. To go to the movies or some junior prom, to see ice hockey or watch the Dodgers come home again defeated. Going to the grocery store only requires lipstick, while a bridge game can mean a quick trip to the hairdresser for a touch-up. I clean my makeup before going to bed alone, and if my mood is foul, I spray the sheets with Ultraban. Most faces are made up before the public is faced. Whether male, female, or child, it's always so appropriate, don't you know, to put a little mascara around the eyes. We make up fantasies to face life. We need to believe we are good on the job, or at least in the bed. We make up lies to impress people who are making up lies to impress us. And if either took all the makeup off, life would not be worth living. We make up excuses to say, I'm sorry that, or forgive me because, and after all, didn't I tell you why? And I make up with you, because you aren't strong enough to reach out to say, come home, I need you. Frogs burrow the mud, snails bury themselves, and I air my quilts, preparing for the cold. Dogs grow more hair, mothers make oatmeal, and little boys and girls take Father John's medicine. Bears store fat, chipmunks gather nuts, and I collect books for the coming winter. I shall save my poems for the winter of my dreams. I look forward to huddling in my rocker with my life. I wonder what I'll contemplate. Lovers, certainly those I can remember. And knowing my life, you'll be there. You'll be there in the cold, like a Siamese on my knee, proud, purring when you let me stroke you. You'll be there in the rain like an umbrella over my head, sheltering me from the damp mist. You'll be there in the dark like a lighthouse in the fog, seeing me through troubled waters. You'll be there in the sun like coconut oil on my back to keep me from burning. I shall save my special poem for you, to say you always made me smile, and even though I cried sometimes, you said, I will not let you down. My rocker and I on winter's porch will never be sad if you're gone. The winter's cold has been stored against. You will always be there. Scarcity in oil and gas can bring about a cold spell. No one cares if you conserve as long as you will pay well. Cash is not the only tool to purchase what we need. Dollar bills and jingling change are very cheap indeed. Buying power in our world speaks to white illusion. Understanding what I need, I've come to this conclusion. Love is in short supply, like leaves on a winter vine. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, I'll pay the price for mine. Spring is late and summer soon will come in with its heat wave. We will all need energy unless we have a cool cave. I don't mind the cold or heat, and I've got a reason. Love, when it's spread all around, can tackle any season. She often wondered why people spoke of gaining years as turning. When she celebrated her 30th birthday, she knew she had turned, though she hadn't gained. The rain turned on her windowsill, and it didn't gain. And he, like her face gaining wrinkles, turned indifferent. She became happier without the big apartment, the stereo components, and the 10 pounds she shed while adjusting to the loss of his love. Her fault lay in her honesty. It was always his sexiness that held her, not his arms. It was his love-making, not his love, she missed. She compacted her life into one tiny room with kitchen, bed, and roaches in 4 corners which contained nothing that couldn't be stolen or left in case she had to run for her sanity. So she turned 31 with all the introspections that nothing, not even them, was meant not to turn. And from that understanding, she gained knowledge. You say I'm as cold as ice, but ice is good for a burn. If you were a woman, you would have known that and rubbed me the right way and let me cool your passion. We are not lovers because of the love we make, but the love we have. We are not friends because of the laughs we spend, but the tears we save. I don't want to be near you for the thoughts we share, but the words we never have to speak. I will never miss you because of what we do, but what we are together. I haven't done anything meaningful in so long, it's almost meaningful to do nothing. I suppose I could fall in love, or at least in line since I'm so discontented, but that takes effort, and I don't want to exert anything, neither my emotions nor my energy. I've always prided myself on being a child of the 60s, and we are all finished, so that makes being nothing. The moon shines down on New York City while I smile over at you. The moon is still against the night, and I am still against you. Surely you must sometimes wonder, won't I ever go home? Surely you must sometimes say, poet, please leave me alone. But my bad rhyme and love of night retain me here with you. And though it's so sad to admit, without you, what would I do? Of course, you are no panacea for my lack of friends. But if I were a Hallmark card, here's where we'd begin. The moon shines down on New York City while I smile over at you. If you've got the key, then I've got the door. Let's do what we did when we did it before. If you've got the time, I've got the way. Let's do what we did when we did it all day. You get the glass, I've got the wine. We'll do what we did when we did it overtime. If you've got the dough, then I've got the heat. We can use my oven till it's warm and sweet. I know I'm bold coming on like this, but the good things in life are too good to be missed. Now time is money, and money is sweet. If you're busy, baby, we can do it on our feet. We can do it on the floor, we can do it on the stair, we can do it on the couch, we can do it in the air. We can do it in the grass, and in case we get an itch, I can scratch it with my left hand, 'cause I'm really quite a witch. If we do it once a month, we can do it in time. If we do it once a week, we can do it in rhyme. If we do it every day, we can do it every way. We can do it like we did it when we did it that day.